I'm going to use the level 4 as my congratulations you made it screen, and then have you return back to the menu. So while we're talking about that, why don't we just actually do it? Let's go ahead and come into our project panel, right click on layer 3, duplicate. Now we have level 4. Let's open that one up. And level 4, we actually don't want to have any of this on here, it's going to be more of a menu. So this will actually not be e-game. We will go ahead and make a new event sheet for this in just a second, but I am going to select everything and delete it, including everything on trigger and on player. So we will delete that. All right, so now with everything deleted, we can keep the background. We're going to shrink that actually down to the main viewport size. So we'll just go ahead and shrink that up. It doesn't have to be exact, but we can move that over. And then what we're going to do is select level 4, come over to its size. Right now it's 1000 by 1000. We want to make it 320 by 180. So that'll just lock it into our viewport size, and then we don't have to worry about anything else. We can leave our background here, and let's go ahead and go over to objects. We will just grab our white text, Command C, go back to level 4, let's lock background, and we don't need all of these layers. We can delete them if we want. So let's go ahead and delete trigger, we can delete, shadow, we can delete, player, delete, level, delete. We want to leave fade, leave background, and let's go ahead, we can leave top. Let's just change top to main. Now on main, Command V paste, we will bring in our text. We actually want to make this larger. So right now the scale is at 100. Let's scale it to 200. That should be large enough. And we can actually set this one we're just going to set manually, so we don't have to worry about making any major tweaks to it. So we will go into text, select that, new text, and let's say, okay, so we're just going to make it say, you made it. Thanks for playing. Press any key. And that will allow the player to press any key and go back to the menu. If you're wondering if you've never messed with this before and how to get these line breaks, the way to do it is if you hit return or enter, it's going to basically make it work. So what you want to do is while you're in the text editor here, hold shift and hit return, and that will actually allow things to move down and have breaks in them. All right, so one thing I'm not liking about the way this is looking is the line height is actually, we left it at 0, and we should probably bump that up. So here, let's go ahead and at least bump that up to 2. And I should probably double check objects. Select that. We should bump the line height up to 2 for both of the SF black and white on the objects page as well. Just a little tweak that should make it look a little better. Okay, so we've got it. You made it. Thanks for playing. Press any key. Let's go ahead now and see what this looks like. Oh, it looks like absolute nothing. Why is that? Well, I think the big reason actually, first off to look at, we go to level 4. Right now the event sheet is e-game, and currently there is no player standing over a sign checker. So let's go ahead and click this to none, at least for now. We'll add a new event sheet in a moment. Hit play again. And now we have another problem. We don't have any code for the fade out. So we're going to go ahead and make a new event sheet. I guess we pretty much can't put it off any longer. So right click on event sheets, add event sheet, and we will call this e-menus. And the first thing we want to do on menus is add event sheet, or add event, system, on start of layout. And then let's go ahead, jump over to eGame, scroll on up into the on start of layout. And we want to steal this wait 0.5 seconds, and fade in. Command C. Let's jump on over and hit Command V. Now, if we go to level 4, select level 4 from the project panel, add the event sheet of e-menus, click save, and now it should hopefully work. There we go. But we did also bring in the other SF black text. So all we'll have to do is let's just go ahead and, you know what, we should probably just bring that in anyway and make that in the background. I think that'll just look a little better. So I know we're jumping around a lot. I apologize. Let's go ahead, copy, head over to level 4 and paste. And now we're just going to make the same edits to SF black that we made to SF white. So double click, press any key. Okay. Now, that obviously is not the same, so we're going to make it the same size. Just like so. And then we need to come down and change its scale to 200. So now it sits correctly. Let's just go to eMenu real fast. And this will work because we're going to use the same text on the main menu as well. So we will go before fader. We'll set the action first. We will go down to SF Black, double click, scroll all the way down, move to bottom, and then add action, SF Black, set position, and we will set it to SF white dot X plus 1 SF white dot Y plus 1. So that should make everything look nice now. Let's go ahead and hit play and see how it looks. Excellent. And you could change the scale and all of that and have all of that work dynamically, but since we're here, we're just making it easy. This is just a demo of how this all works. You can make much better menus for yourself. That's really, the menus aren't the main core of this. This is just showing you how to get a menu running, and then you can do whatever you need to after that. So let's go ahead and close this, and we need to make a new layout for our main menu. We will right click, add layout. Let's go ahead and add layout only. We will call this layout menu. We will come up to its event sheet and we will add eMenus to it. For its size, it'll be 320 by 180. The background is fine. I think let's go ahead and come over to level 4 real fast. Unlock background, copy, head over to menu, paste, and we can just cover this up. We'll just keep using that grass background. I think it works for now. Let's go ahead and call this layer background, and we will lock it. We'll add a new layer above that. We can just leave it layer 0 for now. Now, I'm not going to go crazy with the menu. Menus they can be an utter nightmare depending on what you want to do. We're just going to use a simple mouse-driven menu, and maybe we can make it select. We'll see. But first off, let's double-click and scroll on down, and we want to add the mouse object, just so we have it in. Now, I have made, there's a separate download in the description for the logo that I made for this game called Rocksmacker. If you do not want to use the name Rocksmacker, then obviously you should make your own logo and use that. If you are just following along and want to do it exactly as I'm doing, then feel free to grab that and you can throw that logo in. I'm just going to double click. We're going to go down to Sprite. We will call this logo. Actually, I'm going to call it rs_logo. We will place it in. Let's go ahead and open file. Head into our tutorial pack, or at least this is where I keep all of my files. I'm going to grab the logo, click open. We are good. It's in the center. This doesn't actually matter. I just like to fix the bounding box. Its origin point is in the center, so we're good there. We can go ahead and close. And this is very large. So I'm going to right click, or I'm going to go ahead and grab these corners and shrink this down. And we can go ahead and place it in the scene. I will just right click, align, viewport, horizontal center. There we go. And then I can use the arrow keys to just kind of move it around. And now we're going to go ahead and draw some buttons. There's unfortunately no buttons in the pack. I didn't want to add another extra thing to download for menu items. Buttons are pretty easy to draw. We're going to go ahead and use these two red colors. But again, if you'd like to use your own color set for whatever logo, whatever name you come up with, feel free to go with that. So we're going to make a couple of buttons here. So double click, scroll on down to Sprite. Let's just call this button. Place it. And we're going to go ahead and make this 50 by 16. Let's do 64 by 16. Just make it nice numbers. So now we can zoom in. Easiest way to do would be, let's go ahead and we're going to get the red color that we are looking for. So, or at least what I'm looking for. My first one is E34438. That gives me my nice light red. I'm going to go ahead and fill the entire thing with that. Now I'm going to use the erase tool to kind of chisel out my button here. So I'm just going to go into each corner and just take off the side 3 pixels of each corner. Like so. I'm not sure if it's easier to see on dark. I think light's a little easier to see. Now we are going to use the darker red, and the darker red will be 7, 752D33. That gives me a nice dark red there. Let's go ahead and select our pencil tool. And I'm just going to select and drag a line all the way across the bottom. Oh, too far. Can't draw straight. If you can't draw straight, you can also go ahead and just grab the box here and do that. It's probably a little easier. Now I'm just going to select this on all of these corners, just like that. Excellent. So now we have a button. If we want to make the button look like it is being pressed, we can go ahead and duplicate, and we'll actually just flip it. So if you haven't used that before, up here on these little buttons, we have mirror vertically. We're just going to mirror it vertically, and now it looks like it has been pressed down. That's pretty much all we have to do for our main button. Let's go ahead and make sure our image points are in the correct locations. They are not, so we're going to quick assign, and we'll just put these in the middle, and we will apply that to whole animation. Then let's check our bounding box, and our bounding box on both looks good. So we can go ahead and close this. And now for this, I'm just going to have two buttons. I'm going to have play and mute. So play, mute, and full screen. If you want more than that, you can always put more than that in. I'm going to resize these buttons to make them a bit bigger. So I'll bring it out here, and then I will hold Control, pull out another one, hold Control, pull out another one. Okay, and I will select all of them, right-click, align, viewport, horizontal center. So now they're stuck in the center. And then we can also make sure that these are spaced equally. Select all, right-click, align, space, vertically. There we go. Now they're lined up nicely. Before I forget, double-click, go back in, select the animation, and make sure we set the speed to 0. Otherwise, they're always going to look like they're pressed. So next up, we'll add an instance variable, and this will tell us what kind of button each button is. So add an instance variable, it will be ID, and it will be a string. So for this first button, let's go ahead and click OK on all of them. This first button, its ID is going to be play. The second button, its ID will be full screen. And the last button will be mute. Now I'm going to bring in another instance of the SF white font. Since we don't want to have the black along with it, I'm going to select it, right-click, clone object type, and then paste. So now we have SF White 2. We will call this SF White Menu. I'm going to go ahead, copy that, and let's go ahead and bring that over into our menu. So Command-C paste, or Command-V paste. Now we can see this can sit nicely over the top of each of these, but we're going to have to set up the size a little better. So first off, with SF Menu White, we're going to come down into its properties, and we are going to change its vertical alignment to center. And that's pretty much all we have to do for that. So it's almost sized perfectly. We're just going to drag its bounding box around the button. Let's go ahead and make this one say play. I will hold Control, drag out another one. This one we will make say full screen. And this one we will have say mute. There we go. We have a menu. It's not the fanciest menu. I'm sure you can all do much better, but for now, this is just kind of a quick way to get in here. We might change this picture in a little bit, or at least the background. But for now, let's go ahead and start making this stuff work. You know what? I changed my mind. Since everything is keyboard controlled, we should have some keyboard controls for the menu as well. So we're going to make a little selector here. Let's go ahead and double click sprite, and we will call this selector. Let's resize this to be, let's do 16 by 16. The hitbox is fine. Make sure its origin point is at the middle. And then let's go ahead and we're just going to draw a triangle. So I'm going to get that red I just had, which is E34438. And I'm going to use the pencil tool. I'm going to go ahead and just select these middle two right pixels. And then basically just make a triangle out of that. So you're just going to always go on the corner. Then we'll draw out, and let's come all the way out to the very edge, go up 2, and then we'll come back in until we meet. Just like that. Go ahead, grab the fill tool, fill the whole thing in, and then I'm going to grab my darker red that I had before, which was 752D33. And I will just go ahead and draw this along the bottom just to give it some depth so it looks a lot like the buttons. Okay, so we can go ahead and close this now. Let's set this along the side here, and what we're going to want to do is make places for this to align itself to. So we're going to make a little selector point, or selector guide. So once again, a new sprite, we will double click, go down, sprite. Let's just call this select underscore guide. Let's go ahead and make this, let's just make this an 8x8. Click OK. Make it whatever color you want. We're going to make this invisible, so I will make it a fuchsia color. Make sure your image point is in the center, and we can go ahead and close this. So I'm just going to, for now, place this. We can spend a lot of time setting this up. So for now, we're just going to place these approximately, since this is going to sit on each of their positions. We'll just place it right off to the side. You can make these perfect if you want. We will get them, I'll get them close to perfect. You know what, I might as well, let's see if this works. We'll make the grid 16 by 16 for the layout. Snap to grid, and let's see how everything works if we snap everything to grid. So this being in the center works there. You being in the center work there. Oh, play, you need to come back up. These won't work because of the way they're set. So actually, if we select SF white menu, just come on down to change origin point to be in the middle. That way it lines a center, which that way it lines up with everything else. Each of these are different. So let's go ahead and make all of them center. All right, this should make everything line up a little nicer. So we'll place that there, place that there. Full screen goes on top, menu goes on top. And each of these go into the path, and you can pick whichever one you're on. Good. Okay, so now we have our selector. Okay, so that's all good. Let's go ahead and select the select guide, add an instance variable, and we will call this ID, which is good. And the first one will be ID 0, full screen will be ID 1, and the mute will be ID 2. And that should be all we need. So let's go ahead, head over into eMenus. Okay, so now we're just going to add a global variable here. So we're going to hit V on the keyboard, and we are going to call this selection, and it will be a number. Put that to the top. Then we will add an event, and we will go to keyboard, on key pressed, and the key we want pressed is the enter key. So we actually have to choose that from the drop down here, because if we try and press the enter key, it's going to think we're entering and being done with this. So you just bring this drop down, select enter, click OK, and click done. So now when enter is pressed, we want to have the menu do something based on what number the selection is. So at the start, the selection will always be 0, which will be play. So let's just go ahead and set that one up first. We will hit B for a new blank sub event, double click, system, compare variable, selection equal to 0. We will wait 0.5 seconds. Let's go ahead and just pull that down. We will also pull in the fade out. So just drag this down, and we're going to change this back to fade out. Oh, and its ending value will be 100%. We will add one more wait for 0.7 seconds, which is what we normally wait after the fade out is done. And the action will be system go to layout, and this time we can just use layout because we know exactly where we're sending them every time, which will be level 1. Done. So selection 2 and 0 will be a bit tricky, but we'll get there in just a second. Now that we have that kind of set up, let's go ahead and make it possible to change this selection, because currently we can't do that. So once again, we will add an event, keyboard, on key pressed. We will do the down arrow, click OK, done. So when the down arrow is pressed, we will add action, system, add to, selection 1. Because if we're going down, we want to make sure that if this is ID 1, this is ID, or 0, this is ID 1, this is ID 2. So pressing down will actually add to the number. We can go ahead and copy this whole thing, paste it, and just inverse it. So arrow up, double click, just hit back, subtract from, selection 1, And then we just need to set up little safeguards here. So right now we could theoretically make selection go to 25, and that wouldn't do us any good. Add an event, system, compare variable, selection. If it is equal to 3, because our selections are 0, 1, and 2, if it's equal to 3, we just want to set it. So system, set value of selection to 0. So that means if it ever hits 3, it just turns itself to 0. And then we need to do the inverse of that as well. So copy the whole thing, copy, paste, double click. We will be changing the value to -1, and we will set it to 2. That way, it will always bounce itself back around. So we can infinitely press down, and we will just cycle through the selections. So now at the moment, our little selector won't actually move around because we're making all the selections just up here on the global variable. So we need to make our selector actually move. Let's go ahead and go add event, system, every tick. Then we'll hit B for a new blank sub-event, double click, and we will compare the selector guide. We will compare its ID to the selection. So double click, compare instance variable. So we're going to be comparing its ID to see if it is equal to selection, which is a global variable. So if it is, we want to set selector to its position. So we will set selector's position to select guide.x, select guide.y. All right, let's see if this actually works. There we go. So now we see our selection cycles and goes back up and down, and we have our selections. Excellent. Oh, and we made our little press animation, so we might as well use it. So let's go ahead and go back to E-menu. So let's go ahead where we have selection 0 here, hit B for a new blank sub-event. We're going to move everything down because we need to make sure we select the correct button, because all of our buttons just are chosen by IDs as opposed to by their actual name. So we will double click, button, compare instance variable. If ID is equal to selection, not select guide, then we will have all of this happen. But first, we also want to have add action, button, set frame to 1, drag this up above the weight, drag it back down below for a copy by holding Control, double click, set to 0. And now if we hit play while it is on 1, if we hit enter, okay, I tried to be lazy there. It wasn't working. So this is actually not working at the moment. So what we're actually going to do is right click and we're going to make a new function. And this will be select. This will be in the menu category and make selection. Okay. So we will add a parameter to this, and the parameter will be selected. So now what we're going to do is just on enter pressed, let's go ahead and call function of select, and the selection will be whatever the current selection is. So the global variable of selection. Done. Now we're going to move all of this stuff down. So what we want to do is just grabbing here, we'll drag this all the way in, and then we can come up and delete selection equals 0 right here. All right, this is getting a little clustered here. So let's go ahead and right click, add group. Let's go change selection. And we can go ahead and grab all of these items pertaining to changing the number of the selection as well as the selection icon. Drag all that in here. Let's collapse that down. So now that's out of the way. Okay, so I got way ahead of myself here and everything's a little bit borked up. So my apologies. We're going to revert a little bit. I could just go back and cut the whole thing, but I don't really remember where the best place to split was. So my apologies here. What we're going to do is we're just going to reset this whole thing. Let's go ahead. The only thing we're going to do is copy the fade out. So we will copy that just so it's on our clipboard, Command C, delete everything else. So now when we press enter, we are adding the selection to the parameters here. So it's going to execute on whatever the current selection is. So first thing we need to do is B for a new blank sub-event. And we need to check what that selection is. So system, compare variable, selected, and we want to see if selected is equal to 0. Now, if selected is equal to 0, we want to have the screen fade out, but first we want to have the button that is number 0 do a little bump like it has been pressed. So we will go B for a new blank subevent, double click, button, compare instance variable, string. Oh, you know what? And here's where I was running into a big issue. I have it listed as a string, not a number. So there's actually the problem. Look at that, live bug fixing. So real fast, what we're going to do here is we're going to go over to menu, and we're going to select each of these buttons. The easiest way to do it will be just to move all of this over for a second. We will delete their ID for the moment, because it won't let you edit it if they have IDs in them. We will go double click into ID, and we're going to change this to a number. We will make ID 0, ID 1, and ID 2. My apologies for the confusion here. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. All you really need to do is go back, make sure that each button has an instance variable that is a number, not a string, and a 0, 1, 2, or 3. That should make everything a lot better here. So now we will come back into eMenus, double click, button, scroll on down, compare instance variable, ID, and we will see if it is equal to selected. So what was happening before is it was trying to check a string against a number, and that just wasn't working out. Even though they were both numbers being passed in, one was looking for a string while one was looking for a number, and Construct sees those as two very separate things, which, yes, they are very separate things. So now we should be able to make this work properly. Add action, button. We will set its frame to 1. Just do a little bit of waiting here. So system, wait, 0.2. Then we can go ahead and copy this down and set its frame back to 0. And then we will wait another 0.2 seconds and then paste our fade out, which we had saved. After that, we are waiting another 0.7 seconds. And then we are going to a layout. So system, go to layout. And we will go to layout 1. Welcome to game dev. All those bugs are super fun. So let's see if this actually works now. Now I can move up and down. If I am selected on 0, we will hit it. That presses and we go. Although we didn't get the fade out, and I'm not entirely sure. Oh, I know exactly why. We don't have a fade layer on our layers here. So if we're in menus, right click, add layer to top, and we will call this fade. It will now be overwritten by the global layer that we have in the HUD layout. We will lock it, turn it off, and let's try this one more time. Save, hit play. We can move up and down, and we fade out. Excellent. Now we're on layer 1, or level 1, and we are good to go. So now we have the first part of the menu working. Now we've actually got to handle full screen and mute.